petrochemical sector, a very important sector for India's growth story. We request all the participants to keep their cameras off and stay muted till the end of the session. Please type your queries in the chat box. They would be answered in the course of the webinar. We now request Sri N.K. Santoshi Sir, Deputy Director General, Department of Chemicals, to say a few words to set the context for this session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, N.K. Santoshi. I am Deputy Director General in the Department of Chemical and Petrochemical. I welcome you all for the today's webinar under the... I think the camera is not working. No problem. Camera is not working properly, so I have to set this.
So we request you to...
I think you're on mute.
So we request you to unmute yourself, please.
Mr. Santoshi, your mic is on mute. You'll have to unmute, please. Mr. Santoshi, your mic is on mute, so you'll have to unmute yourself, please.
Can I just check? Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Rene.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Then I'll mute again.
Kaveri, you might have to give Mr. Santoshi a call.
Yes, sir, we are doing that.
Is it, madam, I am audible?
Sir, you are audible now.
You are now, Mr. Santoshi. We missed the beginning part of your address. May we request you to repeat?
Is it okay?
Yes, now it's okay.
Okay, I am starting from... I welcome you all for the today's webinar under the Udyog Manthan series organized by the Department of Promotion of Industries and Industrial Trade, DPIIT. I welcome to all the experts, representatives from the Chemical, NABC, CB, UNITCO, DPIIT, and other organizations participating in today's discussion. I would like to appreciate the effort of Dr. Vandana Kumar, Joint Secretary, DPIIT, for giving such an online platform for interaction with the experts and stakeholders for further improvement in the sector. I personally feel that today's webinar will definitely help the department for identifying critical issues, challenges relating to the quality and productivity faced by the Indian industries in this sector, with a view of solving them to promote government vision that is vocal for local for achieving the goal of Atmanirbhar Bharat. I am confident the department will find solutions for promoting productivity, quality and their interlinkages in Indian industries. I would like to thank the DPIIT for organizing such interaction platform with the experts and stakeholders. Dr. Vandana Kumar JS has asked me to share our department perspective before going to the technical discussion. So I will give you a brief idea about the vision of this department and some of the initiatives which we have taken and the issues on which we are still working on. Before I start, I would like to introduce my team members, Dr. Vishal Chaudhary, who is not visible on the camera here, and Mr. Varun Kumar Punia, Deputy Advisor, Industrial Advisor. They will help me for recording your views, suggestions, and will interact on the technical issues. So I will first provide an overview of the Department of Chemical and Petrochemical vision, issues and initiatives, and approximately I will take the 15 minutes time. Then we will open the floor for the experts and their views. For experts, 4 experts will be given 10 minutes time each for their suggestions. Later on, the question hour session will be set for 1 hour. Our vision statement for 2024 is to seize the opportunity to establish India as a leading chemical and petrochemical manufacturing hub with a trust on reduction of import dependency by attracting investments in manufacturing quality products using cutting-edge technologies in specified clusters with focus on sustainability, and this sector is likely to contribute more than 200 billions to the manufacturing sectors, that is approximately $1 trillion economy of 5,000 trillion economy by 2024. Just I will brief about the sector, how big this sector is. As you have seen, the chemicals is one of the sectors. It is being used in every area there. The market size of the chemical and petrochemical sector in India is of the worth of 165 billion. I'm giving to you the latest figure. As per the according to the National Statistical National Account Statistics 2020, chemical and petrochemical sector, that is for the division of 20, accounts 1.12% of the GVA for the economic activities in 2018-19 as compared to 1.04% in 2017-18 at the constant price. The share of the sector in the GVA of manufacturing sectors is 6.2% during the year 2018-19 as it was 5.73% in 2017-18. If the share of the chemical and chemical products sectors, including pharmaceutical sectors, this is including the division NIC division 20 and 21, accounts 2.25% of the GVA for all the economic activities in 2018-19 as compared to the 2.16% in 2017 and 18. The share of the sector in the GVA of manufacturing industries, manufacturing sectors, with including the sector NIC 20 and 21, this is 12.46% during the 18-19 as compared to the 11.88% in 2017-18. I just put out these figures. You can just see that every year this sector is growing and there is a lot of opportunity in the future also. The industry is highly diversified, covering more than 80,000 commercial products. 16% of the world production of dyestuffs and dye intermediates are manufactured domestically, and specialty chemicals constitute 18% of the chemicals and petrochemicals market in India. The demand is expected to grow at 12% CAGR for the financial year 1922. A shift in production and consumption toward Asian and South Asian countries is expected to contribute towards increasing demand for chemical and petrochemicals for India. I will brief about the import and export scenario. India ranks 14% in the export and 18th in import of chemicals, that is excluding pharmaceuticals products globally. Approximately 50% of the agrochemical products produced domestically are exported. The chemical and petrochemicals market, it is projected to reach more than 300 billion by 2025. Sectors like fertilizer is expected to grow at approximately 13% of CAGR. You can imagine how much bigger the sector is. Now I will brief about the initiatives with the Department of Chemical and Petrochemical has taken in the sector of PCPIR and the plastic parks. The many upcoming petroleum, chemical and petrochemicals investment region, that is PCPIRs, and plastic parks are expected to provide state-of-the-art manufacturing infrastructure for the sector, increasing economics of the scale substantially given the global oil and gas majors are turning their sights on downstream chemical opportunities. This may increase focus on the petrochemicals in India, and higher investment in the sector could ease feedback challenges and the boost self-sufficiency. Now I will talk about the policy initiatives which the Department of Chemical and Petrochemicals has taken in order to achieve the quality and the productivity in the chemicals and the petrochemical sectors. Department has taken initiatives to amend PCPIR 2007 policies to attract investment. And I would like to inform you today here. Today we had a meeting with the cabinet secretary, but by chance this meeting has been postponed on this policies issues there. Planning to draft production link initiatives scheme to increase the manufacturing of the chemicals and petrochemicals. And department is also in the process of for preparing draft chemicals management and safety rules to regulate and managing chemicals in India. Department has made the standards of chemicals and petrochemicals as mandatory to ensure that are expected to attract investment of around 7.63 lakhs crores. As per data available from the state governments, investment of rupees 2.2 lakhs crores have been made for these reasons. The four PCPIRs are expected to generate employment for around 33.8 lakhs persons. That around 3.8 lakhs persons have been employed indirect and direct activities related to the PCPIRs. These are our expectations. Production link initiatives schemes. Department is working on the PLI schemes for specialty chemicals to reduce import dependency and enhance India's export. Around 100 chemicals are identified so far under the different segments. Omnibus chemicals regulations. India presently has no mechanism in place to cater the need of regulating and managing the chemicals in India. Hence, to bridge this, the draft chemicals management and safety rules has been prepared under the Environment Protection Act in 1986. The aim is to provide mechanism for the notification of all chemical substance and the registration of priority chemical substance, and to incorporate two existing rules, that is manufacture, storage and import of hazardous chemicals rules 1989 and the chemical accident emergency planning, preparedness and the response rules 1996 to ensure that the single authority deals with all aspects of chemical management in coordination manner, making it obvious in nature. At present, these two rules are not enforced properly due to the absence of the central apex authority. About the BIS standards, there is need for standardization chemicals and petrochemicals products domestically and imported for human safety, health and environment. Presently, BIS standards are voluntary in nature. Department has made an standard of chemicals and petrochemicals and mandatory to ensure that both the exporters of such chemicals to the country and the domestic manufacturers meet the BIS quality parameters. The mechanism shall help to improve the quality of these products, and we don't want to make our country as a dumping ground for some other countries. So far the department has issued notification for making BIS standards in mandatory for 19 chemicals and 10 petrochemicals areas. With this, there are some key challenges also, which I have highlighted here. One is that crude oil is an essential input in the production of chemicals and the petrochemicals. Rise or fall in international crude oil prices, therefore, directly impacts the price of raw materials, inputs like naphtha, ethylene, polyethylene, etc. which are used in the manufacture of chemicals and petrochemicals. Hence, in order to increase India's competitiveness in this sector, these issues needs to be addressed. Import share of the sector in India's import in 2019-20 is approximately 14.4%. Except the pharmaceutical products, India is a net importer of all the categories of chemical products. For example, in the case of organic and inorganic chemicals, India suffered a trade deficit of 10 USD billions in 2019-20, which signifies India's import dependency. Hence, there is a need for reduction in dependency on imports for this sector. Third is the lack of specialized infrastructure such as pipelines. Moreover, there are other issues as well, which include lack of appropriate water desalination plants, reliable and cost-effective water treatment facilities, and insufficient road connectivity, which create hurdles in accessing of raw materials from other parts of the country. These are some of the initiatives which the Department of Chemical and Petrochemicals have taken, and we are working on some of the issues which I have just shared with you. Now, I would request all the experts to give their views, and definitely we will record these views for our future actions. Hand over to Dr. Manthan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Santoshi, for a very warm welcome to everyone on the webinar today. Thank you once again to the Deputy Director General for your very comprehensive briefing on the chemical sector and sharing the department's vision for the sector. I think it certainly gives the industry a great amount of energy knowing that the ministry and the department stands behind us. I'd like to welcome representatives from the various organizing bodies and collaborators, my fellow panelists, industry leaders, and experts. Delighted to welcome you to this virtual sectoral session, which I hope is going to be forward-looking with a bias towards action on promoting quality and productivity in the Indian industry and specifically within the chemical sector. Udyog Manthan, as you might be aware, has been designed as a marathon session of 45 webinars spread over 8 weeks, spanning all the champion sectors of Indian industry, with a very clear and focused aim of examining opportunities, challenges, solutions, and best practices, and carrying these sectoral cross-learnings of quality-inspired productivity from promise to practice. Today's sectoral session would examine how quality and productivity can catalyze building of a competitive, compliant, and conscious chemical industry of pride on the global stage with quality products and services, not just for India, but for the world. Today's panel discussion will, I hope, address some of these questions and provide us with the pathway for carrying forward brand India in our sector by winning the hearts and minds of customers here and across the world. We are delighted to have with us a stellar panel of 8 members today, and I'll introduce them to you as I request each one of them to give us their brief perspective of quality and productivity in the broadest sense. I'd request that for this initial round, we keep your perspectives to maybe about 5 minutes each. So let me get the ball rolling with requesting Mr. Parp Das, who's MD and CEO of HPCL Mittal Energy Limited, leaders in the petrochemical sector here in India, for your perspective. Mr. Das, over to you.
Thank you, Rajiv. It's really a pleasure to be here with you. Dear panelists and participants, I know that each one of you is working in chemical and petrochemical sector, and you are all expert. I am no expert, but I would like to share something what we have been doing. To start with, Mr. Santoshi had mentioned that import substitution and export. I'm proud to say that India, is a country when it determines something, it does it in its style. I'll start with three. I'll come to the quality and productivity. Just to give me some time. India was importing petrol and diesel in 2020. 2000. You remember that, there was a rationing of petrol and diesel that particular time. Come 2020, we are exporter of petroleum products. India really determined that it will have enough number of refineries. Now we are exporting a quality product even to California. We exported nearly $36 billion products. 20 years we have changed the scene. I think, for petrochemical, it will take much less. The second thing, not many people know about HMEL. We are a joint venture of HPCL and Mittal, 49% equity stake, and we have a refinery which we built in 2012, a 12 million ton refinery. And now currently we are implementing a petchem project of 1.2 million ton ethylene. This is 20,000 crore project. Why I'm telling this, that I just wanted to find out how much equipment did we buy from India and how much did we import? And we are building one of the best and largest world-class complex, 20,000 crore. So I made a calculation. We are buying, 1,360 equipments, all compressors, motors, exchangers, you name it, and it is there. And we are buying, pipes of all sorts and sizes of 1,800 kilometers, fitting plants. Out of this 20,000, only 15% we are paying outside. That includes the technology. So we are doing good. India is really capable of producing all the items, and we were competitive. We had international competition. Our manufacturers were very competitive and a good quality. So India has really come of age. Third example, in this pandemic, we were short of even mask and PPE, few months, and we are the major exporter. I think we are good. We are doing good, and we can really do good. Most of our companies are concentrating on quality and productivity. I think that is why we are exporting, and but there's always a scope. So let me just concentrate on two items, because time I'll keep my time. Just the two items which I will concentrate on, and what we are doing, and what we think that we can do together. Safety has always been a prime concern for HMEL. Safety, both of occupational safety as well as process safety. This really gives dividend. Some people think that safety doesn't cost much, but returns are immense. It gives discipline in the minds of people. It changes the culture of the organization. I think most of us are doing it, but little more emphasis. I'll just give an example. There's a company in USA, Alcoa. The CEO was appointed new, Paul. It is little old, in 1887. And in the first meeting of investor, he talked only about safety. People thought he doesn't know things. That's why he's talking about safety. In his tenure of 13 years, he really made the profit went up 5 times. The share market went 5 times. The market cap went up by $27 billion. Safety pays. We in HMEL have been, putting this safety on top of our agenda, both for occupational as well as safety. In this project which we are building, there are 20,000 people coming and working with us. 20,000, and they are not industrial workers. In most of time, India, you get agricultural labor are converted overnight into industrial worker. We give training to each one of them. Incident injury-free workplace is our motto. We have got all the awards, British Safety Council Award and 5-star rating, etc., etc. The bottom line was when we were benchmarked in the Solomon benchmarking for all the refineries on earth, that is 376 refineries. We we did relatively well. We were in quartile 1 and 2 in 25 after 2019. But I'm trying to convey that, little more efforts on safety, both process as well as occupational safety, will get us quality and productivity. Doesn't cost much. So that was my first point which I wanted to convey, that let's concentrate on that. The second one is doesn't cost much again. It costs a little. Digitization. India is a leader. In IT, India is a leader. All people, back office is here. Brain is here. People talk many things. We are having all the technology ourselves. Somehow, when we will talk about Industries 4, we talk about industrial Internet of Things, analytics, robotics, high-performance computing, artificial intelligence, cognitive technology. We all think it is for space or something. But, each one of you must be involved in this. Everybody must be doing something on it. This is the area which to look for. If we are really able to do something more in this, we will be really competitive on Earth. And various people must have tried many things. We in HMEL, we from small things to big things. Small things. This is something called robotic process automation chatbot. You must be knowing. Small things. Our TA bill is all computerized. All invoices are all automatic. It saves time. It saves money. The quality is improved. From that small things to our the CDU plant is advanced process controls are there in that. It's automatically optimized. Real-time optimization is going on. We have, I think I can and go on saying that we had lot of hydrocarbon coming out of our PSVs. We put a sensor there, and through remote. Now, as soon as there is a emission out, we come to know, and we can really control. We were making polypropylene, and the quality was getting affected. So we had that digital twins, and we really improved ourselves. The work is still to be done. So this is the area to look for. I think the investment here, the payback period will be 3 months, 6 months, something like this. So if people can really work on this, and it is very easy, it's just a mindset issue. I was, although being an engineer, I was not very savvy with that. We had a rule in this company. Then every person will have 3 days training on IT, including CEO. And that's how the thing changed. It is not rocket science. It is very simple. If you are able to do it, the productivity and quality will certainly improve. I thought, I'll stop here and later on at an intervention I'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I think that was really a lucid explanation of the steps that you've actually taken within your organization to drive productivity and quality forward. With just 2 very simple examples around digitization and safety. And now request Mr. Shyam Bang, ex-chairman of NABCB. He heads today the Task Force on Manufacturing Excellence within FICCI, Director of Jubilant Life Sciences, huge wealth of experience. I think perhaps Mr. Bang is having network issues. Perhaps we could move on then to the next delegate, and we'll come back to you, Mr. Bang. Next, really on our panel today is Dr. Rene van Berkel. Dr. Berkel is UNIDO representative here in India. Again, wealth of experience on the subject and the topic. So, Rene, may I request you for your views on these issues, and then we'll take a second round and dive a little deeper into this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And UNIDO, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, is really pleased to contribute to this Udyog Manthan, and specifically on the manufacturing quality and productivity in the chemicals manufacturing. Of course, these are profound productivity and quality are profound manufacturing concepts, and hence they are also at the heart and the soul of UNIDO as the specialized UN agency. Though we live in the 21st century, and the first speaker already more or less referred a little bit to this, so we cannot just look at it from a manufacturing perspective in a narrow perspective, but we need to look at industries and chemical industries that are fit for the future, fit for the 21st century, and that is very much linked and in the UN system with the Sustainable Development Goals, so to get industry that is inclusive and sustainable. So having productive facilities that manufacture products and services that are sought after by the markets, but also taking care of the people. The safety aspect was already referred to, and then also environment issues. As a first introduction, maybe I can highlight 2 or 3 points. And I think that, first of all, of course, we could reflect on the current times, and we are still recovery or in the recovery from the COVID pandemic and the restart after unlocking, and so we're going through this challenging times in business, and that has this kind of a tendency or maybe temptation to cut down on productivity and quality, but that is in UNIDO's view absolutely the wrong thing. We might be tempted to cut corners to a certain extent that is embedded in if I may say so, also in the India reality. India is a large market, so there's always a market for second-grade products. And there's also, if we certainly talk about the MSME segment, the perception that, nothing will go to waste because there will always be somebody who can buy our stuff. And this is a kind of a mindset which is a bit of a challenge if we want to drive forward the quality perspective. So even if we can sell it for a second quality price, we are still making a financial loss, and that is not yet in the Indian psyche, if I may say so, as an outsider. I think that there is also perhaps sometimes a preference for a cheap solution, a jugaad solution when it comes to technology, and that can also be very beneficial. Many examples of good innovations, but we should be careful that this jugaad and this cutting corners and quality is not becoming a straitjacket that prevents us from becoming world class in that sense. So we are certainly in our work, in UNIDO's work, in the current pandemic times or recovery times, we are stressing this notion of building back from crisis. B3C, also online, and we put there very much the emphasis on productivity and innovation, taking care of people, taking care of everything that goes into manufacturing product. So even in the past, when the times were good, we could afford to be wasteful at some points. Now that the times are less favorable, we cannot afford to lose out on the productivity losses. So my second point is that maybe perhaps that productivity and quality today have much wider interpretation. So we were talking about the 60s or 70s. It was quite narrow. Product is your yield productivity, and then your labor productivity, and then quality is basically you check it at the end. And this is no longer the one that we are looking for. We're looking more at a performance of appraisal of all that we do in business. Specifically, productivity relates then to all the resources that we use that go into manufacturing. So it's manpower, it's energy, it's raw materials, other utilities. And there is in our experience still a significantly large potential, untapped potential for productivity gains by focusing on these materials, energy, water, waste, and related areas. So we have been having a very tight focus on what's the labor cost and what is then the labor productivity. But if we talk about productivity, we should also look at how productive is my energy input, how productive is my material input. And likewise, quality is then also no longer limited to the final product, but it's related to all aspects of our operations. So how do we take care of the ergonomics of people so that people are productive in their workplace? Do we also take the safety and security into consideration? So we are looking more at an integrated concept. At UNIDO, we stress upon this with what we call then resource efficient and cleaner production. So we say you minimize or you maximize the efficiency use of materials, energy, and water So everything that goes into your manufacturing operations should become a product, and then you have automatically less waste to throw away. And if you do that, then you also keep your people safe. And that is the virtuous synergies that we could achieve there. This is also very much that also very much related to the concept that the zero effect, zero defect of the DPIIT and Ministry of MSME. So there's still a lot to do, and by way of examples, just to share some examples then of practical work, we worked quite extensively, for example, with Ankleshwar as a typical MSME cluster with about, I think, 600 MSME units, 2/3 of them in the dye and pigments, and a quarter is pharma related. So with the Gujarat Clean Production Center, we worked on clean chemical technology, so to look at the catalytic oxidation of benzoic acid derivatives, so you avoid the nitrous oxides, which are a greenhouse gas contributor, and then also save energy, and also working on the acid recovery, which is in many of the plants, so spent acid recovery, so we avoid 2,000 tons of waste acid. And together with then also looking at plasma incineration of some of the waste streams, we came up to some 110,000 tons CO2 avoided in the cluster with just 2 or 3 new technologies. Currently, we're working with in the same cluster with ESL, Energy Services Limited, on the replicable energy technologies for this small-scale manufacturing, and there are many opportunities. So we're looking at what is common is still to have horizontal agitators. The vertical ones with improved impellers are much better, save about 20-25% energy, and you have much better mixing, so better quality, better productivity. So investments, we're talking about 19 lakhs payback, 20 months, 22 months, so well within 2 years. We talk about introducing of energy efficient scrolls, chillers, which say 30-35% energy and are more reliable in terms of cooling at different performance ranges. So you also have better productivity, better quality as a spin-off from using energy efficiency. Here, the investment is about 6 lakhs, and the people are talking about a 2-year payback. So that's good business in that. Then that comes on top of the more traditional work on efficient boilers, for example, the IBR boilers, which are still not common sense and commonly applied. So with the appropriate boilers, an investment of about 8 lakh, companies can recover that investments in a year. So by having a more comprehensive approach to productivity, in particularly the MSMEs can still save quite a lot of money and become much more competitive. I think maybe as a last point in this first segment, I think that the productivity and quality are not really rocket science, but they rather require persistency and consistency. So it is simple principles that need to be applied. Sometimes the solutions are complicated. I won't put that away, but it is much more an issue that we need to look at the skills of the people. So it's not just being a good fitter, but also taking consideration of quality and productivity issues. To look at the systems, we have standard operating procedures, but do we actually monitor? We collect a lot of data, but do we actually use those in the systems? Then, of course, we need to look at the technologies. I already gave some examples of that. I think that another obsession is perhaps that often we would like to copy and paste rather than design from scratch. So we take rather different units together and put together a manufacturing plant rather than designing this right from the start for integration and efficiency. And then I think this all perhaps also relates back a little bit to the entrepreneurship, which, of course, I talk more about the MSME segment, that we still need to get across the message that sometimes you can earn much more by spending a bit more upfront. And this kind of perceptions are really there. I think that you often say quality and productivity are a journey, not a destiny, or you can also say it's a never-ending story. So, and this is really what we need to do. We need to bring pride into the manufacturing operations to embrace this professionalism, responsibility, innovation, productivity issues as a culture of manufacturing in the chemicals and also in the other sectors. So maybe I keep it here, and I would be happy to come back with some more international experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Rene. Thank you so much for that. Really insightful and good to hear about the kind of actual use cases that UNIDO is working with industries in Gujarat on some of these aspects. I think we have Mr. Bang back with us. Welcome back. The network issue seems to have been solved. I'll hand over to you, Shyam, for your views and perspective and the kind of experiences that you might want to share with the audience.
Okay, great. Thank you, Zahir. I would just like to share some of these slides here. In general, I would say chemical sector could be broadly divided in 5 verticals, namely refining, petrochemicals, fertilizers, bulk chemicals, and specialty chemicals. The other division we could make is in the continuous process plants and the batch process plants. In the first 4 categories, refining, petrochemicals, fertilizers, and bulk chemicals, continuous process is deployed, and majority of the specialty chemicals are produced in the batch operation, while maybe some of them are produced in the continuous process as well. One typical thing about chemical industry is that the product does not have any brand value. The product goes to another industry, does not go to consumer directly, except some products like diesel, petrol, fertilizer. Most other products like shoes, television, tires, automobiles, clothing, they have some brand value. In case of chemicals, the customer, the manufacturers just meet the specifications of the customer and then compete on the price. So for today's session on quality and productivity, let's see how the Indian chemical industry perform and the scope for improvement. It's not possible to make a general statement for all chemicals. The situation is different for different categories of products. Performance of most of the continuous process plants in India would be comparable to global standards. They are designed by engineering companies who design plants all over the world. However, technology keeps changing and so we have to keep pace with that. And the plants which were set up 20, 30, 40 years back will have limitations and will have to take steps to meet today's requirement. If we talk of refining industry, it meets the global quality standards. They produce diesel, petrol as per Bharat 6 standards, which are comparable to the European standards. The technologies are licensed by global companies, and the plants are designed by large engineering companies who design similar plants in other countries. So technically, we may not have major gap. Same story is applicable to petrochemicals, fertilizers, and bulk chemicals. In case of specialty chemicals, the story is different. The technology for specialty chemicals is not traded freely in the world market. In most companies, they develop their own technologies with the in-house team, sometimes with outside support. The plants are designed by engineering companies based on such developed technologies. These specialty chemicals plants have big scope for improvement. Some next door units may buy products compromising on quality, but overseas customers will not buy the same. Besides, due to low productivity, the product cost goes up, reducing the competitiveness of the industry. The suggested steps in very simple terms, I would say, you have to look at the technology upgrade, quality systems, internal audit, quality by design, and scale of operation. Well, saying is easy, but of course, I'm sure the situation would change from industry to industry. The scale of operation makes a big difference as the scale goes up. You can justify the investment in good machines, in quality systems, employ competent persons, which can improve the quality and productivity both. If you really look at the labor productivity, some of the weaknesses that we are facing, the labor productivity and capital productivity in India is lower than in the competing countries. If a company is making profit today, it is not certain that it will continue to make profit in future in the fast changing world. Profit is not an indicator of competitiveness or manufacturing excellence. To be competitive in the global market, industry has to take steps that will lead to manufacturing excellence. Several industries have taken initiatives to bring excellence in manufacturing, and their sustained growth is visible. While many industries who did not change their approach with changing world have lost opportunities. Every entrepreneur, every manager thinks that I am doing a great job. My quality is very good. My efficiency is good. This self-assessment keeps you in dark. Management systems have evolved with time and various parameters contributing to excellence, and to measure your score on each of these parameters, the systems have been evolved. Now, if you look at this slide a little bit, I would say on one side you have the enablers, the visionary leadership, the strategic planning, and then you have these process parameters, customer focus, innovation, quality systems, supply chain management, operational flexibility, machine uptime, visual management, scheduling systems, inventory levels. So these are all the process parameters, and if you monitor them, the results that you will see is productivity, quality, cost, delivery, safety, and the morale of people working is high. And you measure your score on each of these parameters, and you have some benchmark and your own score, and this is where you can see the gaps in the industry. It's a very analytical and systematic approach. Subjective element is replaced by the objective element, and this analysis leads to the identification of gaps. Once the gaps are identified, then one has to take steps to remove those gaps, and gradually the industry moves in the direction of excellence. There are various methodologies used by the industry like Six Sigma, TPM, Kaizen, theory of constraints, etc. to drive their improvement program. Checking quality of the finished product, rejecting bad product and sending good product to the market is an outdated concept. It results in wastage and higher cost. Having good quality management systems, writing down all SOPs, making them available to all employees, verifying their compliance will ensure consistent and desired quality. As a part of quality concept, the supplier, the manufacturer must look into take into consideration his own supplier, but not only his own supplier, also the supplier's supplier. Similarly, on that side, he has to also keep in mind who is his customer and also the customer's customer. And that's how really makes the system robust, if you have that kind of broader vision and bring that kind of vision with all employees. The large corporates must work closely with their suppliers to ensure their supplier systems are also strengthened. This will help your own industry, and also your supplier's performance will improve. So if your supplier is able to give you good quality product at a consistent reliability, with a consistent reliability, I'm sure that improves your performance as well. And this is what typically the automobile industry in India has done, and we can certainly have a learning from the automobile industry also. I'll take one example of maintenance. which is a grossly ignored area in the industry, but a very important area, I would say. Its importance must be recognized based on because your production output and your productivity, the consistency depends on that. There are several factors in the industry or parameters which contribute to the manufacturing excellence. I cannot cover it all here. The little bit on standards and regulatory compliance. Various regulatory bodies in India and other countries have specified standards for some chemicals to protect consumer interest and environment. Industry has to comply with them. It is necessary to make it a part of the quality systems to ensure its compliance. European Union has this regulation REACH, which mandates registration of all chemical products. In future, more countries can come with such regulations, and industry has to comply to expand their market. In the international trade, accreditation and certification is getting increasing recognition now. There are over 200 accredited certification and inspection bodies in India. Certification from these accredited bodies and laboratories, there are almost like 4,000, 5,000 accredited laboratories in the country. And certification from these accredited bodies and laboratories are recognized in most of the countries in the world. And industry should take advantage of the system. To summarize, I would say measure and create and generate more data as much as you can. The data must be recorded. Measure the overall equipment effectiveness, OEE, and overall plant effectiveness, OPE. From the data, find out the deviations. When you start analyzing the deviations, reasons for deviations, conditions at that time, you see the opportunities of improvement. When such opportunities are identified, take target for improvement and draw out an action plan. Take a small target at one time, maybe 2%, maybe 4%. Sometimes it can be bigger also. When you take small targets, working team thinks it is achievable, and it really happens. So first and foremost, one must believe that there is a scope to improve. Once you believe, then you will identify areas of improvement and take steps to improve. The data which was considered unimportant earlier suddenly becomes important when you analyze it and several opportunities are identified. It's a continuous process. We can call it a continuous improvement model. And friends, I can assure you all such initiatives will give you returns several times more than the cost you incur. It will make your industry, your business competitive and sustainable. At FICCI, we have created a task force for manufacturing excellence. And we are regularly organizing programs for the benefit of the industry on various topics. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. And thank you for your patience. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Bang. Thanks for sharing that very simple yet very insightful and systematic framework for industries, whether large or MSMEs, to examine their path forward on quality and productivity. I'd like to now move over to Mr. Sagar Kaushik. Mr. Kaushik is CEO of UPL. I think it's a company that requires really no introduction. Leaders global footprint and presence. So, Mr. Kaushik, may I request you for your views, with just a gentle reminder that we seem to be running a little over time. So may I request you to kind of keep it down to maybe 5 or 6 minutes so that we have time for another round of interactions after this. Mr. Kaushik, over to you.
Yeah, Zarir, organizers.
मेरा तो हो गया, तो जरा वापिस.
Yeah, so Zarir and the organizers, thank you very much for this opportunity. And as we progress in the panel discussion, I think a lot of points are covered, so I should definitely be able to save some time. I'm actually representing the crop protection or the agrochemical sector. And I like to give a bit of difference in this for this sector as a part of the specialty chemicals than what has been spoken for overall chemical sector here today. So as far as the agrochemical sector is concerned, India, luckily, I must say that is sitting actually at a sweet spot because of its potential it holds for the domestic market related manufacturing and servicing the demand, and also for the exports. Why I say it? Because globally, it is a $65 billion market. And this market has already gone generics to the extent of 50 to 55 billion. In the next 5 to 6 years, another 7 billion will become generic. And the new products pipeline, I don't say that it is dry, but it is much more shorter or smaller than it was 10 years or 20 years ago. And therefore, the market is moving from less of invention to more of innovation. And this difference we have to recognize, that how the invention could be expanded and transformed to a value creation through the innovation. And that is what India is capable of doing. Just to give some differences, that what I mean by innovation. I think innovation would make the invention to be available at the required parameters to larger scale of the customers, larger segments, larger geographies. And that is what India could do. India is capable to identify new manufacturing processes, targeted design processes, and achieve much lower cost of production. And therefore, the product gets available and distributed widely. It is also able to bring the formulations which have never been thought about. And they service different level of environment-friendly aspirations of the customers or the consumers. So I think the global market being generic, the access to the Indian manufacturers, Indian corporates, is much more wider. And that is what we have to systematically have the policies and have the execution that we are really recognized. And that recognition we already have. We have to maintain that everything is to be done with full respect to the quality and respect to the environment. Let me give you some numbers, and you will feel elated for this specific sector. So our exports are much more higher than what we do the business. And I'm talking about India. I'm not talking about UPL. So for India, the total domestic market is $2.5 billion. Export is $3.4 billion. The exports are growing at the rate of 14-15%. And the total trade which takes place in the world for agrochemical, India has 10% market share. And that market share is the highest than any other sector within the chemical and petrochemical part. So I think we have done well. Now, I quickly go now to the quality, productivity, and these aspects. So in terms of the quality, I can assure you that in 130 countries, 60% of the export which happens from India is done by UPL. And so I am very sure what I am talking. In terms of the quality, there is very, very rare that any rejection has taken place globally. So we are able to produce really the world standard quality from India, and again, not alone from UPL. And this also happens because our industry is regulated from the quality point of view, and from the environment point of view, from the efficacy point of view, like pharmaceutical. So I think there are a few processes which are mandatory being followed, and it is done pretty well. And today, the focus of our industry, and together with the Department of Chemicals and Petrochemical, is that how India could become really end-to-end manufacturing base. We have the proven technologies in the industry for maybe 20, 30 chemistries or the products where we have been able to establish end-to-end manufacturing value chain. We are, in terms of the quality and in terms of the competitive best in the global arena. So I think we have been able to be focusing is actually, as Mr. Wenberg mentioned, that it is not just the theoretical or the compliance part of the quality, but you have to look at the whole system and the whole processes, the manufacturing processes. Are they delivering the required occupational health and the safety aspects, etc., are very relevant. That is where India also has to parallelly invest much more. Because if we believe that our exports could go from 3.5 in the next 5 to 7 years, I think we have to see that the sector hand in hand with the improvement in the safety and the environment footprint that it will be created. To give an example, UPL has opened a center of excellence for the safety and the occupational health in near Dahej, which is one of the PCPIR. And this is not for UPL alone. It is to service the other industry around, because every engineer which will be working has to go through some processes. So I think, but what we have opened is one, but I think at several states level, these center of excellences, they need to be really put up, need to be supported, and to understand that the cause for the industry is more important than the individual company, because India's success will be in terms of the industry value chain, because UPL is not going to produce everything. We talked a lot today with regard to MSMEs, rightly, I think, but MSME, they need to remain. It could be, a pipe and distillation column, etc. When the same equipment we install in our company, and an SME's installing his location, you see the output difference is huge. So therefore, if these simple examples, we could bring a change by establishing this skill set. Also work on the mindset of the entrepreneur, that if they have to employ the people who have been trained with these skill sets, they have to pay more. And they should take out from their mind that I must be the most competitive producers. So I think this change needs to be brought in. And I would really say that as an industry, and also as the government, because government has a lot of budgets which they have done with regard to setting up these skill sets and the training part, etc. So there should be, I think, a combined effort between the industry cluster and the government, so that how MSMEs could be taken on board with regard to improving their skill set, so that these differences of the quality and the productivity part, this could really be matched. So that is where I would like to really stop, and will say that this skill set is the most important area to be focused. Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute, I think. So Sagar, once again, thank you for that. As always, a very, very insightful and a great deep dive into the agro sector, which obviously is being spearheaded by the efforts of UPL and super learnings there. We move on now to our next panelist, Rupak Saraswat, who's CEO of India Glycols. He brings with him a wealth of experience in the specialty chemicals sector. And Rupak, without much further ado, I'll hand it over to you for your views on this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Langana, and thank you everybody for giving me this opportunity to present my perspective on quality. Obviously, it is just one perspective which I would like to give. so that I can leave you with some thoughts. Just a second, there's some noise which I need to address. My apologies. Yeah, so when I was thinking about quality, I thought about, irrespective of the industry, some products or organizations which I have thought about as high quality. I've not been paid by them. So Toyota, for example, Singapore Airlines, for example, Amazon, for example, Canon, for example, and so many other companies which makes various products, including products which sell B2B, and slightly differing from what somebody else said, that there is no branding in B2B products. I think it is a little more challenging and it is significantly less, but there is a possibility of creating a quality brand in the chemical industry as well. So thinking about quality, I thought it is about delighting our customers from the point of view of functionality, reliability, and not surprisingly, it has now become inseparable from sustainability aspects as well, which includes product, operations, and the way the organization conducts itself. So we do not see a product which eventually does harm to the environment as good quality. We do not see the product or service of an organization which causes harm to people or the environment as good quality. So it is the overall experience of product, service, and organization which is increasingly widening in terms of the quality definition. In terms of quality and productivity, as people earlier mentioned, I believe quality, productivity, safety standards go hand in hand. And they go hand in hand in many different ways. And they also go hand in hand because what is required to deliver them, which is a culture, systems and processes, and from a leadership perspective, there is a lot of commonality. And whenever you look at organizations which have been able to deliver them, those organizations have been consistently profitable and consistently sustainable. Not only organizations, I may say ecosystems. So it has consistently helped us in delivering growth and creating far more value. Now, the thing about the chemical industry in India, as is possibly true for many other industries in India, specifically chemicals industry in India, the way the industry came up in India is that we would quickly like to get some know-how from the developed world or a recipe, present ourselves as low-cost producers. So we would cut the frills either in terms of the product or in terms of the plant or in terms of the process or in terms of the standards, or we would lower our gross margin expectations and therefore we would enter a business. And quite a number of Indian organizations to start with have presented or have thought of that as a competitive advantage, which allowed them to initially get into business and build a business on this basis. Now, whilst it is an excellent starting point, the issue is that it has brought us here, but may not take us any further. Our aspirations are different. And if we continue to do this, for the very same reasons, this will move away from us. And at the same time, we will not be able to address the aspirations and the needs of this nation. So this kind of becomes a hurdle and a baggage as well. So in that sense, you can take a person away, you can take recipes away, but you will not be able to so easily take away systems and processes which have created a pipeline of those innovations or those products. And last but not the least, which is a little more difficult to comprehend, but which is something which is the real thing to go for, is competitive advantage which comes from culture or value systems. Now, in order to kind of explain this, I was thinking once that if you go to Singapore, for example, if you take a bus there, there is no bus conductor. So you have a list of stations you would go to and you put the money in the box. Now, if McKinsey were to, for example, do a study and recommend that in Mumbai or Delhi, well, we have the knowledge to put the boxes and put the rate list and people to put in the money. We can have the IT systems to back it up, but will it work? It won't work because we need to work at the culture and value systems level. So I think the same goes for quality or productivity. It is a much more longer term investment, and we need to move away from the tactical know-how, systems, and processes to making it part of a culture, such that we can create those winning systems. I'm a firm believer that we need to get away from the mindsets of, and this is a point that I've made in CI and other industry associations, of solely creating winning companies. That is when we argue about, how I can have less stringent norms which are troubling me, or how I can have, less duty, which will make my life better for the next 2 years. Of course, that is important. But how much do we need to think about creating a winning ecosystem, which will then deliver a long-term performance? And, the world that has examples aplenty to tell us that wherever people have created systems or a culture where quality, safety, health and environment, sustainability standards are at the core of what the organization does, are also cultures or ecosystems or nations which are at the forefront of value creation. And some of the examples which come to my mind, for example, are Germany, Japan. And we need to stop thinking about it as a cost or a tactical move and invest long term in our people, in our culture, in our hugely capable of doing in terms of quality and productivity, amongst many other things. So not only from a company perspective, and I think our policy also needs to gear up to doing that. That's a thing that is what we probably need to think about a little more. So thank you, Zaid. This is all from my side.
Thanks, Rupak. As always, pleasure hearing from you, and thanks for that. A very broad strategic perspective on this subject, and thanks for also touching upon a lot of the softer aspects of what drives quality and productivity, because without that in place, the nuts and bolts sometimes don't work. I'll move on now from the perspectives of people from the chemical industry to someone from the consulting industry. This is Mr. Manas Mazumdar. He's partner and national leader for the oil and gas and chemical sector at KPMG. And Manas, great to hear your perspective. And just once again, a small request, if we can restrict it to about 5 or 6 minutes so that we get a chance for a second round of queries. Manas, over to you.
Appreciate it, Zahir. Thank you so much. And thank you to QCI and the DCPCN Ministry for this. I think the panelists before me have made all very relevant points, right from whether we look at it from the petrochemicals perspective that Mr. Batas talked about, the agrochemicals that Mr. Kaushik, as well as the specialty elements that Mr. Saraswat and then Mr. Bang also talked about. I think I would, from a business strategist standpoint, kind of step back and look at, look at it from a formula perspective, right? And of course, it's not always the right way to do it, but at least it provides us a framework, and that's one of the things that we aim to do, to provide a framework and structure to how we look at things, right? So if you look at any good business, right, and if you look at it from the sectoral standpoint of chemicals, and this is true for any industry, honestly, you look at it, price, volume, quality, right? And in fact, I think Mr. Bang only talked about one of the other metrics we look at, which is OAE, which is overall asset effectiveness, right? Which is a slightly different connotation in terms of it talks about reliability multiplied by productivity into quality is equal to your asset effectiveness, right? So that's a very asset specific view, but you can look at assets, both human capital as well as, actual physical capital. But if I go back to my, mantra of PVQ, which is price, volume, quality, that's in a sense how you could look at how the chemical sector across its segments, whether it's bulk, specialty, agrochem, petchem, can really look at growth. And these are not mutually exclusive, as one said. These are force multipliers, right? Quality by itself can ensure you have a better sense of your pricing. Your ability to produce more or enhance your volumes gives you the scale advantage and efficiencies, which will reduce your cost, right? And all of that can then reflect in your pricing and your cost to serve and increase your margins, right? So this is an internecine formula that one really needs to look at in whole soul, right? And that's what I would really look at. I would call, the PVQ trilemma, or in this particular, keeping to the ambit of our focus today on the productivity and the quality part of aspects, and these are interdependent. Now, within that, if I were to apply this to the chemicals space in particular, the quality aspect is very critical to what I call customer centricity. And I think this was Rupa who talked about the fact that whenever we think of quality, we think of certain brand names, right? And many of them are Japanese in turn. I mean, I think the names that were talked about, Toyota, etc. And having said that, while they did focus on quality, they did also focus on how do you enhance your production method, right? Why did Japanese cars take over American cars, and were the death knell for the big auto in Detroit, Michigan, was primarily because they were able to successfully solve this mantra, right? And I think this is where both the aspects of quality, and in fact I would evoke the whole lean transformation principles, as well as the Six Sigma philosophy, which are both Japanese in origin, around the fact that you can produce efficiently and produce quality. And those two together really are the formula that can drive sense. Now, if I look at it from the quality sense, again, as I was saying, from a chemical standpoint, this is really the question of what does the customer want, right? And if you look at it from a petrochemical standpoint, if I want to bring in, let's take polypropylene, right? As Mr. Das was talking about, polypropylene itself has multiple grades and variants thereof. You can talk about random copolymers, you can talk about impact copolymers, and all these are just the L2 level variants that you have. Then within that, depending upon what variety are you looking at, from moldability, durability, thermal capabilities that you have of that product, it makes a difference on its final end use segment. And the end use segment is linked to the customer. And here I would take it one step further to say, not only know your customer, but know before your customer, right? And this is where you probably jump the gun and talk of what a Toyota does in terms of quality, or maybe what a Apple does in terms of outthinking the customer and creating a product that the customer does not even know he requires it, right? So thinking ahead and looking at the trends that are there in the world around us, and clearly one of the key trends is around the whole concept of sustainability. And we talk a lot about zero defect when we talk about quality, but I would want to add zero defect, zero effect, right? Or ZD, right? Now, this is a kind of a concept that you would really want to have, that anything that you manufacture is eventually being circular in nature and is not impacting the world around us. And these kind of customer centricity thoughts, which are still, at least from an Indian context, and maybe even to some other parts of the global market, and as well as the digital technology to really run it efficiently. And finally,
now PVDF, and all these are actually true examples of Atmanirbhar Bharat, as no one else manufactures these products in India. That is the first thing. The second thing is that 70% of our product is being exported to countries like US, European Union, and Japan. We also export some quantities to Korea, Taiwan, China also. But almost out of 70%, I would say 60 to 65% goes to these Western countries and Japan. Now, when we were facing the problems of finding our footing in the global market, the quality requirements were definitely much more stringent than they were in the Indian region or in the Asian region per se. The very first thing which we were welcomed when we started approaching the European Union was the REACH registration, which itself was very, very challenging. However, we had to come to our standards. We had to invest in our plan to upgrade our systems to reach those standards. We got it done. We got the approvals. We got REACH registered. We had to go for UL approvals. We had to go for some other safety approvals, which we did. We got those approvals. Yes, it was time consuming. And as Mr. Bang very rightly said, that for the specialty chemicals and specialty fluoropolymers, there are no technologies available. You have to somehow, adopt yourselves to some borrowed, know-how and borrowed technical know-how and adopt it to the nations, which we truly did to that extent. So the first thing was that, the challenges which we were facing from the customers was they wanted everything as per what they were buying from our erstwhile competitors like DuPont and 3M and Daikin and Solvay. So we had to come to their standards. One thing is that to be mentioned is that Russia and China were manufacturing these products from almost 20, 30 years before we ventured into it. But today, after 15 years, we are probably registered where the top 5 are registered, but not the Chinese and the Russians. So probably that is the progress which an Indian company can make. However, there are certain other things when we come, probably at this juncture, I can say probably after all these approvals, finding a footing in the global markets probably was then smoother and easier. But then I come inwards to the Indian market. Over here to be done. Probably, if the BIS people are sitting over here, I would request that these kind of processes should be shortened and industry should be supported. After all, we are running for the cause of at least a minimum quality standards in this country. The second thing was that what I feel is DCPC also needs to support us or all of us over here as a broad industry that once the BIS certifications are being done, then the mandatory portion to be done for those particular aspects need to be streamlined, time defined, and see to it that all the industry in India which is manufacturing comes to those kind of standard levels. So that's the second thing. The third thing which we faced was that ever-changing specifications in the international market. The very fact that some of the surfactants and additives which we all use in the chemical sectors might be having PFOAs and PFOS or some other surfactants which are having certain restrictive usage in the international market. But the moment the word changes to those specifications by either by REACH registration or if the Japanese are changing to it, if the US guys are changing to it, even I would say Korea is also going for REACH registration. So that is the second aspect which we have faced, that when we go to the international market, we have to comply with all these things. We have to develop these surfactants on our own or shift to them very fast so that we can be competitive in the market. So that's the third aspect which is there. The fourth aspect which we are facing nowadays, I do not know about your own setups if you are exporting or dealing with the multinational companies, is that the sustainability of business with respect to environment, safety and health. EcoVadis is one such example that now a lot of companies in the multinational genre in either abroad or in India also are asking whether we are having sustainability models. Are we EcoVadis compliant or not? If we are not, then they simply say that we can't do business with you. So I think that's the next step, which is to be followed by everyone. That on these platforms, I am the one who is implementing this in my own company, and we have successfully uploaded our application this time for the better scores. And so I know for one full year what kind of a whole transformation we all had to go, and how many systems we have changed in our own organization. And if I think the quality aspects itself will go up. And not even in these sustainability models which we were following, it is not our own company. It is our customers who were engaged with us. It is our vendors who were engaged with us. So not even that we were doing the implementation at our own part. We were also getting the questionnaire filled up. We were training our vendors. We were training our customers to know how to be socially compliant, how to be quality compliant in all these aspects. So that's another aspect which is developing very fast. And we all need to be geared up to do that, in order to sustain ourselves in the quality aspects.
Thank you, Kapil. I'm a little mindful of time.
One more last aspect is that we see that when we go to either developed countries or even China now, there are a lot of private sponsored research institutes. Like in my own case, I can find a fluoropolymer research institute in China, And a lot of applications which were developed during this time were developed through this. You all will be very surprised to know that we are talking about 5G applications, we are talking about lithium-ion applications. Let me tell you that there is a product called PVDF. Again, it's a fluoropolymer. And the advent of 5G will make the usage of FEB, PFA in the cables which are manufactured for LAN cables and also for transmission of the data. So that is one aspect which is going to be there. In lithium-ion batteries and solar frames, use of PVDF is going to be there. So, all these new technologies which are coming are using a lot of specialty chemicals and fluoropolymers, and we all need to know in advance that what needs to be done to be compliant with them.
Thank
So
you,
this is what I have to say from my side.
Thank you, Kapil. My apologies. I think we're really over time now, and we still have one or two more panelists. So may I request somebody very important in the value chain from, excuse me, from TUB Nord, we have Mr. Shankar Patil. Mr. Patil, could we have your views? And once again, really sincere request if you could keep this down to about 5 minutes so that we can perhaps take a few more insights from some of the panelists. Mr. Patil, over to you. Mr. Patil, you're on mute. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Mr. President,
5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I was not able to hear you, so that I asked audible. Sorry, I lost my time. Thank you giving me opportunity and for 5 minutes at least. We are basically we are very much working on the quality and quantity aspects because we are basically a company and we have almost concerns about the quality and quantity. So our service portfolios do suggest. To our estimation, India is the world's third biggest crude oil importer and is emerging as one of the key global driver for refined fuels consumption at such an economic expansion and rising industrial activities, the infrastructure improvement and increase energy access commercial to retail consumers. India present refining capacity and the future expansion plans ensures the nation's surplus productions and high-speed diesel and gasolines, including aviation, ATF and fuel oil exports. The refining companies like Indian Oil, Hindustan Petroleum, Bharat, SRM, the existing capacity and their plans for 2030 has been planned as per government notifications what we have. It is the India, if you can say, it's almost 6th largest manufacturing country and 3rd largest consumers in the world on this petrochemical sites. The petrochemical industry covers a wide range of the products, ethanes, propanes, aromatic compounds, and benzenes, toluenes, intermediates. We as a third-party inspection, we have been asked by the foreign buyers or the sellers for inspection of quality and quantity. So definitely we have a major concerns and we have the similar visions for the company. Our quality policy guides about principles of vision, mission, and the values.
Thank you, Mr. Patil. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for that perspective. And thank you, everybody, for those very comprehensive perspectives. I think we have a little more time to get through maybe 2 or 3 more interactions with some of the panelists. And let me start with you, Rupert. Obviously, it goes without saying that quality and productivity are 2 important pillars of building any brand. how is brand India in your perceived in this sector globally? And where do you think we lag? What are the opportunities for improvement for your own sector in specialty chemicals? You're on mute.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So thank you. So the way, and it is not necessary that that's the only perspective. You will probably agree that by and large, brand India, even in the chemical industry, is seen as a nation with mind-blowing potential, but mind-boggling inability to reach it. There's no doubt, and there's generally agreement that there is huge potential. If you look at the market, if you look at the talent that we have in terms of engineers, chemists, or other people, I've had the opportunity to work globally, especially in Southeast Asia, Japan, Singapore, and others, with people who worked in my teams, and I can say that with confidence. In terms of the natural resources that we have, in terms of the way we can do projects at much lower costs. Now, if you look at these parameters, I wonder why we are not in a far better position to create many Jurong Islands, and why business goes to a place like Jurong Island, which does not have these advantages. So to start with, from the multinational perspective, people get foxed and eventually get frustrated. But and as somebody said, India is seen as sometimes a market for second-grade products, and I dare say that sometimes it is also seen as a place fit for doing lower-end manufacturing or hand-me-down manufacturing, and that is a perception that we need to take on working. The desire to work with India is huge. As a country, we have a lot of goodwill. People are looking at alternatives, and in general, I think it is a nation that the world likes to trust. In terms of improvements, I may make a few points. I think we need to get away from the obsession of merely having certificates. I'm sure India has far more quality certificates than Japan has. And we need to get obsessed with achieving excellence. I remember reading in the autobiography of Steve Jobs, when he came back into Apple, and he was asked a question that what have you started doing that the company has started to perform so well again? And keeping it in context, he said, I've asked everybody to stop focusing on profits. The point I'm trying to make is that it's not about short-term gains. This is about excelling and therefore creating a brand which will eventually translate into value. I would like to see that mindset. And it is going to be multi-dimensional investment and commitment in people, in culture, in infrastructure, in technology. And we need to move ahead from thinking of quality as tactical, meeting specification and shipping the container, to strategic. And eventually, if you look at the countries which deliver it, it is a value. I mean, that's how they work. I've worked with people in Japan. So it's an inherent value. It's gone far beyond tactical and strategic. And the same point again, we all in the industry and policymakers, we need to join hands together to create an ecosystem which wins. It's not about only companies winning. As you can see in the world, whether it's cars in Germany or electronics in Japan, or even in India, there are great examples like the pharma industry, like the crop industry, or the IT industry. It is the ecosystems which win. And, as policymakers and industry players, we need to work towards that.
Thanks, Rupert. I think that was really useful. Going to you, Rene, you spoke a lot about the work that you're doing with MSMEs. Could you perhaps share your insights on some of the global best practices or the practices that UNIDO brings in terms of training and capability building for MSMEs on their journey on quality and productivity?
Yes, thank you very much. I think on the MSME and training and capacity building, I think there is the need to actually bring in the kind of productivity mindset into the vocational training and skills that we do. We have a lot of work that is currently happening on skills development through the Skills Council and so on, which is very much focused on being a good pipe fitter or being a good craftsman, but taking a systems perspective, and typically quality and productivity are an outcome of the system that are kind of missing there. And I think that Rupak has mentioned it twice. We need a winning ecosystem, and the ecosystem for supporting the MSME sector is relatively weak, I guess, in India. And we can say we have quality counts, we have NPC, but if I go to one of the chemical clusters, whether it's VAPI or any of the other ones, it's still difficult to get access to reliable information, reliable technology. And I think this is a matter of both demand and supply. So it's also the MSME sector opening up the doors and accepting that somebody else can maybe add value by advising. And it's also by the service providers taking the MSME sector as mature, as worthy support. I think that since I have the floor, let me misuse it for 1 minute and maybe highlight two other practices which I think as global practices, which I see not yet fully reflected in India. And I think that there is a lot of trust around the safe and sustainable chemicals. So that's about developing new chemicals, new molecules, and new processes, which one might you have different nicknames for it, but I think that it goes under the green chemistry. So redeveloping, we did not necessarily need new products or new pigments, but we need to redevelop the way we manufacture them so that it's more efficient, less waste, and more efficient done there. So I think this is some area where UNIDO thinks there is still a potential for India. We have the engineering know-how, we have the chemical know-how, but we're still not applying this new thinking about efficiency in a broader way in manufacturing. So green chemistry, we've been trying as UNIDO through what we call a facility for low carbon technology deployment to get some examples. We have some examples of companies which are trying to extract now omega-3 fatty acids from waste materials from the silk reeling industry. We have some companies which are looking at doing biotechnology, enzyme-based alternatives to pharma production. So that the green chemicals trust and green chemistry trust is certainly something that we feel could be added. The second one, which I would like to add, is on the kind of the efficiency at the level of the industrial parks. And then we often talk about this acronym that one person's waste can become the input to somebody else, the notion of what in the scientific literature is then the industrial symbiosis. So, and this has been, if you look at the petrochemical parks globally, this has been the way where profitability has been really driven in Singapore and China, or in Taiwan or Korea. So we see some examples of this, but this can also be extended to other areas on eco-industrial parks. We tried for now I have to Nandesari in Gujarat as well to try to do some of this work. And then also small chemical producers, can they work together on how to deal with the chemical drums, but also on a collective water reclamation strategy, or the notion of also doing the steam highway. So rather than everybody having a small steam boiler, can we supply this at a larger scale and support many small units in there? So I think we start to think about also an ecosystem of factories in these industrial clusters where we have many MSME operations. But the challenge that India is a leader in some of the specialty chemicals and a lot of knowledge and capabilities there, but it is kind of, if I may say so, the chemistries which were coming out of the 60s and the 70s, and they're not necessarily the ones which we need in the middle of the 21st century. So there is a need to help, and you can't say several of the panelists have commented on this. The specialty chemicals, you can't buy them off the shelf. It's custom designed, custom developed, and then can deliver a lot of value to India, to productivity and quality and the environment and safety. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, René. And just following on from that, I'd like to address something to you, Manas. Rupa has spoken about, the translation from promise and potential to implementation. René and Rupa both have spoken about, developing the ecosystem. From your experience and KPMG's experience, what are the global kind of best practices in this area to drive that groundswell movement at scale? How do you really develop this so that it becomes built into the DNA of the enterprise?
Sure. And I think so. I think the ecosystem question is the most relevant one because that's a key pillar or tenet of really making that success happen, right? Because, and I think somebody else also mentioned about the value chain aspect. I think it was Mr. Kaushik. I think it's chemicals is not one thing; it is a set of interconnected set of things, right? And which is where I think I was talking about the circularity of it. But what has really worked is really the governmental support, and I'll give you two examples. One, in fact, I think Rupak had rightly talked about was Jurong. Technically, it doesn't have anything there, right? I mean, it's just a transition hub. The best benefit it has, it's a logistics location. It's situated in Asia. China is there. But other than that, what really has happened is Singapore government has really set it up with Shell, BP, and other petrochemical facilities coming up there. The similar equivalent, which is again not too far off, is in for example, in Yanbu that Aramco and Sabic and others have done. And again, what's very interesting is the ecosystem is really a very interconnected one. There, they have invested financially with the likes of Dow. DuPont Dow has invested significantly there. Similarly, there's another example which is closer to Singapore is in Johor Bahru, where the Petronas has done something very similar. Again, the usual suspect of Dow coming up there, where there is both financial investment, this technical investment, and in fact, even the likes of Lamas is also involved there. So you have the investment, the financial capital. You have the technological capital, because at the end of it, chemicals, and especially the specialty chemicals part of it, is very much know-how driven, because that drives both the productivity, the cost, and also the quality part of it. And then creating the remaining infrastructure, which is at the end of it nothing more than an industrial park. You need cheap, reliable power. You need to ensure you have water. You need to ensure you have ETPs and effluent systems. And you need to ensure there is land, there is security, there is a bandwidth. So these are the basic necessities that are there. But while we probably all of us know the recipes, and in fact, honestly, India has been trying it, and Mr. Santoshi can indicate, but PCPIs, other than probably Dahej, have really not come up that well. And I think we should take a clean slate look at ourselves and see what has really worked. And again, for the lack of a better word, I would say it's what we call the Gujarat model, right? And it has worked very well there, but it has not worked in Paradeep. It has not worked in Kakinada, where we are trying to look to do it, right? So, and there has been attempt, but honestly, at the end of it, it comes down to strong governance and strong political support to really make it happen. And I'm not trying to say and pushing it everything on DCPC and the government, Santosh, don't see it like that. But I'm just trying to tell you, basis our experience with these various aspects, what has really worked, and that is really the single most driver. You have to have the ecosystem, and I'm saying each person has to play that role. But that really, while you have the recipe and you need to get that ecosystem together, whether it's technological capital, the financial capital, the process know-how, as well as the human capital, eventually, and of course the basic necessities, you have to have that overall support to really make it happen. Zari?
Thanks, Manas. Thanks, and I remain optimistic that with the new PCPI policy that Mr. Santoshi was referring to, with some of the recent developments at Paradeep, I'm hoping that the reinvigoration of PCPIs will be a step in the right direction. And that brings me really, Sagar, last word with you, and continuing from where Manas took off, an industry perspective of what support is expected from the government in addressing some of the challenges that we spoke about today, and how do we really ensure delivery and drive implementation focus and convert this huge promise into reality. Sagar, over to you. Sagar, you're on mute, Sagar.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. And I would say that in the last few months, we have become actually quite optimistic that some of the initiatives which are beyond assurances, we think that they have started to work. I could also name this DCPC. I think some of these PLI scheme, I think it was the way it has been, the amount of time which DCPC has spent in preparing the proposal, making it really a robust proposal that wherever it has to go for the approval to cabinet, etc. And I must say that the kind of question they were asking us for making the proposal very robust were so healthy and so much, let's say, committed. Similar thing I see in the other ministries like the Ministry of Environment. You see some concrete changes which are happening in terms of the structure. And in the past, there used to be one group. Now there are 3 groups which are available to look at the different proposals of the different industries across sectors. So you see the response time has dropped, and the supportive attitude has come that, look, you only have to give me this and not to put the whole proposal once again. So I think at the center level, I see that there is a collective effort and it's coming actually in a collective manner, both from the bureaucracy as well as from the political side. So we have to actually compliment the government. I must really say it and emphasize that. Now, the other differences we have to still overcome is between the center and the state. There are duplication for the similar type of approvals. I think those areas need to be addressed, that if there is the approval process has to be from either center or state. State can approve and inform the center, and center can approve, and I think those areas, they need to be still negotiated, which is healthy. And I think there is always a good reason to the way the policies are there. So the other areas which are, as I mentioned, specific to our industry, and I mentioned that we are at the sweet spot that the global markets have become really generic, and they will become more generic. So I think there we need to see that our policies should be supportive, because this key success for generic is, of course, the quality, price, and the sustainability areas, because the customers in the US, customers in the western part of the world, they would like to see this similar ecosystem that exists with their present suppliers in India. So it's not just the quality part, etc. So we have to mirror a lot of processes to achieve that. That's fine. But this is the generic market, so we have to make sure that we are the first generic to be brought to the market. And for that, some of these new campaigns we see about data protection for the globally generic. Why should there be a data protection for a generic product? And they make a case because this is coming first time in India. What is this? So I think these areas, India has a full respect for the invention. There is 20 years project for the period. And if the inventor has taken 20 years to bring the product now when the patent is over, I mean, why are they creating this kind of a confusion that India doesn't respect data protection? I mean, India respects the patent, and it is beyond patent. And, that creates, unnecessarily takes away a lot of energy and focus that we need to be really working. But to answer, I think we are on the good way. We are moving with the very optimistic and beyond assurances. So we could be optimistic for future.
Thanks so much, Sagar. This has been truly fascinating, and I really wish we had more time to delve into each of these great insights in greater detail. Hearing you all, I think it's quite obvious that we reaffirm that quality and productivity do go hand in hand, and if we are to make an even more significant mark on the global stage, we need to pursue this proactively with a sense of urgency and spread the message across the value chain. I think for the sector, the time is here and now, and we really can't afford to lose seizing the moment if we wish to achieve the twin goals of self-reliance and hitting that 5 trillion mark. This sector has always had the power of good and can be a key catalyst, and we must and we will rise to that challenge as we've always done, to bring to life the vision of Make in India with, as someone said, zero defect and zero effect. May I take this opportunity to thank the efforts put in behind the scene by the organizing teams who've done an admirable job in putting this together. Special thanks to Mr. Santoshi for being with us throughout the session today. I think that just reaffirms the kind of support that DCPC gives to this sector on its continuing journey. And of course, my sincere thanks to all our speakers today. Once again, thank you for joining us and a very good evening. Stay safe, stay healthy.
On behalf of QCI, I would like to thank Mr. Zareel Langana for moderating the session and all the esteemed speakers for sharing the useful insights and perspectives towards the chemical and petrochemical industry. We understand that the industry needs improvement in areas of infrastructure, including pipeline, road connectivity, water treatment facilities. Innovation and designing is also required. Going further, digitization in the field would lead to increase in productivity, maximizing efficiency in terms of energy, water, electricity, etc., would leave less resources for waste disposal. Institutions and specific to the industry, like in China, needs to be set up. So all these recommendations shared today will greatly contribute towards the compendium that will be released after the conclusion of the webinar series. We're really grateful to all the attendees who were part of today's enriching session. Thank you for everyone here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and stay safe.
We may end this session now.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.